You're between two dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. Marv, aka the Educated Meathead. For each show, we posit a thought about a training exercise, a training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. We might argue and debate, or we might agree and tell each other how smart we both are. But at the end of the discussion, we both decide if we smash or pass the topic of the day. Today, Dr. Marv will be doing his Rehab Prehab Rodeo Roundup segment. I love saying it. I'm gonna love and laugh every time I say that.
Yeah.
Providing a weekly gem that relates to prehab rehab to keep your training on track and reduce the risk of injury while maximizing gains. What is he going to talk about today? Stay tuned and find out. Remember, every time you comment on the show on YouTube, you'll be included in a drawing at the end of each month to win a $150 shopping spree for EliteFTS.com, 5 pounds of Team Skip protein from TrueNutrition.com, and you'll receive Dr. Marv's online bodybuilding anatomy course. The more times you respond, the better your chances of winning. We'll post the winner for the month on my Intense Muscle IG account, and we will also reach out to the winner via their YouTube account. Dr. Marv, I posit that the belt squat, you got to strap yourself in for this one. Well, not just the exercise, too. Boy, that just fit, didn't it?
Literally
I didn't even do that on
figuratively.
purpose.
Yeah.
Got to strap yourself in for this. I'm going to irritate at least a couple people with this one. I posit that the belt squat, and I'm going to use examples of people who are doing it too, that the belt squat is every bit as good as the barbell squat for quad size and development from a bodybuilding standpoint. Obviously, I'm not saying that barbell squats are useless. They're not. But from a bodybuilding standpoint, I think they're highly overrated, much like deads. But I will say there's a few people, too, to back up my opinion. I'm going to throw out one as an example, Austin Stout. He has, I don't want to say he's relied on belt squats, but the foundation, at least for the last few years, of his quad training, arguably his quad growth, is the belt squat. And I know myself, I have transitioned to it because of the injuries I was dealing with my knee back from 2020. Now that I don't have those injuries, I don't necessarily need to do it. But when something's working and something feels real good, and with the belt squat, you have those things that you can tweak. You can tweak your position of where you are, either over the pulley, behind the pulley. It could be a lever too, same thing. But with the pulley, I think there's a little bit more of an opportunity to change that position, where with the lever, I think it's a little bit more limiting. But they're both great. They're both great. I can't even say that I like one more than the other. I'll be honest. I guess I would go with the lever first because I think I can move a little bit more weight.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, we're all still the same. It's like if I have to put an extra plate on there, that's okay because I get another plate on the machine. But at the same time, those lever machines, especially the hammer strength, they tend to be a little bit heavier anyway. Like the carriage and everything is heavier than the pulley system for, say, Elite FTS, which quite frankly, Elite FTS, everything is heavy with Elite FTS.
Yep.
Maybe because everyone using it is so strong, minus me. Anyway, wonder what your thoughts are on that. If you think I'm crazy, I love the belt squat. In fact, it's a foundation now. It's one of my main exercises that I don't like to take out of my quad programming. Thoughts?
What belt squat brand machine are you using?
I know a thing or two about training, but I built a reputation in the bodybuilding industry for removing skin. If you have too much skin, call me. Remember, skin is overrated. Oh, Elite FTS. I mean,
Elite
even
FTS,
if I were using Rogue, I couldn't admit it anyway.
Yeah.
Due to contractual.
Yeah,
but it is an Elite FTS, and it is a pulley.
Pulley. Okay.
You know what? I go between 2 gyms. I got to be fair. I go to one gym 1 week in the off season, not in contest prep. I stay with the same shit all the time in contest prep. But I go from one gym 1 week to the other gym the other week, and I alternate back and forth. So the one does have the lever hammer strength, and the other one has the Elite FTS pulley setup. And I think I prefer the pulley, even though I made the joke about the added weight and everything else. I don't have to load as many plates, so I am a little lazy in that sense. Carriage doesn't weigh as much on the pulley, but I don't know. I guess I just prefer the pulley because then I can use that position. If I want to be a little bit further back, I think there's 2 main positions. You're either a little bit back and away from the pulley, which arguably, because of the angle of pull, is a little bit more quad, or that pulley is literally right below you. So position is everything. I think I don't want to say the one limiting factor to the belt squat that I don't like is you have to be very careful that the belt is comfortable, because it can keep your stance, like you have to use a much wider stance to allow for a stiffer, uncomfortable belt to be able to drop between your quads. Otherwise, you'll have pain in the adductor area from the belt itself, or the little buckles, that you hook your, what are those called? Harbinger?
Oh, yeah, the carabiner. Yeah.
Carabiner. Why am I saying, thinking harbinger or whatever it is? Anyway, it's one of those days.
So, and if you haven't done belt squats before, and especially if you're in a new relationship, tell your significant other, because you might get some bruises and scrapes and scratches along that
might
little.
Be hard to explain.
So proactively tell your partner, hey, I did belt squats today. There's going to be some skid marks, some road rash, so to speak, in a very personal area. So get that way. Okay, so overall, belt squats are awesome. I had access, I believe it was a Rhino in Cairo school that was pulley, and Widowmakers on that were legendary, like 40, 50, 60 reps with like a 5-minute set. Now I have access to the hammer strength lever. For a while I had access to something from Bolt, which was trash. Sorry, Bolt, do better. So I skipped them, but then one of the 3 gyms I go to, because I'm that dude, has the hammer strength, and that I think I like that more than the Rhino I had. I've tried an Elite FTS in another gym. I don't know what deal they made with the devil, because gravity's turned up the second they put an Elite FTS sticker on something. It's pretty impressive. I did legs this weekend, and I actually messed around with a somersault squat on a belt squat that I'll show. And I chose to do that versus the Cybex squat press, because I'm like, I don't want to have to load 8 plates per side. Like, that's too much work at this point. When I was younger, I'm only doing the machines that I could, max out. Now I'm like, what's the heavier of the 2? That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. But anyways, I'm a big fan of belt squats. So long as, we'll talk about it. And I forgot my spine model at the office. I apologize, but you got to control your pelvis. You can put yourself in not the best position. So we'll talk about that. But belt squats are good. But what is interesting, and maybe somebody else could find them, I only found 2 studies on belt squats, full stop. That was it. Yep. So that kind of caught me off guard. There was no research on like the belt squat marches that are really big in the strength world. I've never seen a bodybuilder do that, where at the beginning of your workout, you just put the belt on and you're just marching in place. So you're warming up hips, you're distracting your low back. You could do it before a heavy session or after to kind of decompress the spine, especially if you don't have like a reverse hyper. So I would have thought for sure that would have been researched, but it's not, but just throwing that out there. So since we have so much research, why don't we knock that out first, and then we could talk about mechanics, because yes, where you stand varies it, and I could explain why that would happen. You good with that?
Yep. Sounds good.
Cool. So, moral of the story, it's great for heavy loading of your legs and taking load off your low back and your upper back. Ta-da. Anyways, so this one study compared back squats to belt squats, which was nice. So I did find the 2 studies did compare them, which was really helpful. So this first one had 31 subjects. They were doing 5 rep max, and they were taking surface EMG measurements. Remember, EMG is limitation, but it's what we use. So that's what we're working with. Moral of the story, similar quad activation, but significantly less glute max activation on the belt squat. And that is because, so you're positive saying it's great for quads. I agree with. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Had you say quads and glutes, I'd be like, maybe, maybe not.
Right.
So why is there less glute? Well, if you think about it, the load's no longer on your back. It's now to the shoulders and the hips. So it's reducing how much hip extension and trunk, upper body stabilization you have to do. So that automatically will reduce some of the forward lean, right? And the forward lean is how you change moment arms, which is how you load the glute, right? So it's going to be less activation of the glute max significantly. But the quads were hit very similarly. So with this study, it's phenomenal for quad activation, taking shearing stress force off the low back. So whether you have a current injury, an injury history like Skip and I, or it's great for a new movement pattern. It's great for deloads, especially if you've been doing like super heavy back squatting, deadlifts, everything that's compressive. Let's do some decompressive stuff. So there was that study. Then the only other study I found was comparing belt squats to back squats, but they were doing isometrics only. So there's 26 subjects. They did isometric measurements at 4 different squat depths. And then they measured something called moments, which I'll explain. And I'll just read it verbatim because it gets complicated, just to show, like, be careful who you're getting data analysis from. But they took measurements at the ankle, which would measure how much, gastrocnemius, soleus, how much calf activation. They took measurements at the knee for quads, hip for glutes, and then low backs, especially something called your lumbosacral junction. So the base of your lumbar spine and your pelvis, that's, the sacrum's right there. So there, and that would check, how much your low back erectors are getting recruited. They took all of that and then using data analysis, which I just assumed they knew how to do correct. Remember, we talked about, what was it off the top of my head, 85% of the most top 20 cited strength and conditioning research studies had at least one statistical error in there. So we're assuming they did it right. They then did all this data analysis and they equated it for a 45-degree thigh angle. So not a full squat, but that's how they measured it. So what the hell are joint moments? I'm just going to read this verbatim and then I'll just give layman's terms. So joint moments are defined as rotational forces. You could also use the term torque because it's a rotational force generated around a joint, resulting from the combined action of muscles, tendons, ligaments, and external forces acting on the body. In biomechanics, joint moments are typically calculated using inverse dynamics, which integrates kinematic data, so joint angles, velocities, accelerations, and kinetic data, ground reaction forces, so, pressure plates, blah, 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 to estimate the net effect of all forces producing rotation at a joint. So, moral of the story, they're figuring out how much tension is on a joint, what is the main muscle that acts on the joint. That's how you extrapolate muscle recruitment and what the body's using.
Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
So in the belt squat, we found increased knee and ankle moments, right? And decreased low back, which would be the erectors. So increased knee is quad, increased ankle is the gastroc and the soleus, decreased low back would be the erectors. Now, why would the ankle increase? Well, again, the load isn't on your back, it's shifted forward. So the load is, in front of relative to the ankle joint. So the ankle has to fire more to stabilize it. So you'll get a little bit more calf recruitment.
It's essentially pulling you forward. Is that the best way to explain it? Okay.
Yep. So you've got to fight it. And I think most people would agree, if you really start paying attention to how much tension is in your calves doing the two, I think it's pretty significant. We don't think about that, but like next time, pay attention. And there's that. With the back squat, it had increased back. So obviously erectors. And in fact, the higher the stress on the low back with a back squat, like the higher that was, the bigger reduction they got in the belt squat. Because think about it, if you have very high low back recruitment and a squat, you're probably leaning forward. Well, the belt squat allows you to be more upright and you don't have the load, all that stuff. So once again, it's awesome if you have a back injury or you've just been compressing yourself for 35 years.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you started when Brontosaurus burgers were the protein of choice like Skip did. So he's got to get away from compression. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. But what was interesting is this one found the hip moment relatively consistent. So this one did kind of go against the first study. I would say, though, to me, the first study makes more sense also from feel, right?
Yeah.
But again, you could play around with it. So there's that. Now, like Skip said, if you stand in front of the pulley, think about it's going to be pulling you. If you stand at the front with it pulling you behind, well, then now you've got to fire more with the quad. I mean, with the hip. Sorry, good God. So if you're forward, it's more glute because it's pulling you back. So you have to extend the hip. If you stand way behind the pulley, it's more quad because same concept. You got to fight with there. And if you're right up and down, it'll be as even in quotations as possible. So you could play around with all of that.
Okay, I got a big question. And hopefully you're not going to say, because sometimes I do this, I get ahead of myself.
Yep.
Can you answer the constant question that we all get or have, some people have, but as a trainer, I get this question a lot. Even though the resistance is coming just above the glute or the hip, pretty much right, just above the lower back.
Yeah.
If you are bent over, like you would be in, say, more of a powerlifting type squat versus being upright, can you transfer a significant amount, like significantly more stress to the glutes? Or because of where the resistance is coming from, so low on the lower back, just above the lower back, that it really isn't going to make much of a difference?
More of the latter, because moment arm. So, okay, here we go. So the line of pull, right, is here. So there's this side is a moment arm. This side is moment. This one's longer. So this is going to get recruited more, right? That's your quad.
Right.
Now, if I shift forward a little bit will be there, but the load's still right above the hip joint, like you talked about. It's not way up here on the spine. So it will never replace the glute recruitment of a barbell back squat, but you could, yes, lean forward, mimic almost a low bar. You'll transfer a little bit to the glute, but by the nature of the movement, it's impossible to load it the same. Does that make sense?
And I agree. And that's what I've always said.
Okay.
So the reason that I ask that is because I don't want anybody to get the idea that, oh, if I bend over more, and Austin does this too sometimes. I don't know if he purposely does it to have some sets
Variation,
or some week or some part of his programming to be that way.
Okay.
Or it's almost as if, and I've seen this and I've tried it myself, where I stay bent over more and it almost feels like a pendulum. It's almost as if I'm thinking, okay, push the platform away versus being more upright and just squatting more upright. But I don't want people to get the misunderstanding either that, oh, the belt squat has less glute involvement or only because it allows you to stay more upright. It's not just about staying upright.
Correct.
It's about the fact that the resistance, the between the lower back where the resistance is coming from on a belt squat versus where you would have a bar on your shoulders, that is the lever.
Yep.
And I think that's what people miss out on. So I just wanted to point out, and I figured you were going to say what you said and kind of back up my thoughts on it. But that is a big difference from a posterior chain standpoint when it comes to comparing the barbell squat with the belt squat. But from a quad, here's the other hang up I have. with those two studies, you said, and I'm trying to paraphrase, so I'll try to get it right, but correct me if I'm wrong. There's essentially the same quad involvement, but less glute involvement. How can that be? If you're giving up glute involvement.
As an educated meathead, I want to be doing everything I can to recover from each training session. Rapid reboot compression therapy is one of the tools in my tool belt that I not only use in just my office, but myself after every single leg session, and it really makes a difference. Use my promo code Dr. Marvin Says to save money on any of the compression systems. That is definitely Dr. Marv approved.
Does there not have to be more quad involvement?
You would think, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were similar. I don't remember off the top of my head if they were not statistically significant between them, and that's what matters the most. But I don't remember off the top of my head. I do know from back squats to glutes, it went from like 0.8 to 0.6 was and then all the standard deviations, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, that's a 25% reduction. So that's nothing to say, shake your head at. Yeah. But it was not statistically significant, which, yes, you would expect the quad to have to be more to fight it. But and again, there's limitations. There's only two. And also everybody's built differently, right? So one person, yep. So there's that in account. But yeah, that surprised me as well. Also, I feel it way more in my quads than my glutes personally.
Yeah. With myself, and again, this is going to come down to technique a lot as well. But I find the regular squat to be far more balanced from the quad to the glute to the hip. And the belt squat, I think that's another reason that I like it. And this needs to be said. I don't know if I would have gravitated toward the belt squat had I not had the injury. And this is something that I've said for a long time. If you have an injury, there is the potential to learn a lot of shit because it's forcing you out of your box. It's arguably forcing you to make decisions on exercises, either by changing the exercises and using exercises or pieces of equipment that you otherwise wouldn't use or don't use much. But even the mechanics of those movements can be changed to be beneficial while you're trying to get around your injury. So as much as no one wants to get injured, I damn sure don't. No one watching this or listening to this wants to get injured. When you do, it is a little bit, or can be a little bit, of a silver lining in the sense that you have this situation or this opportunity to learn a lot of shit if you're willing to sit there and experiment, move your exercise around, move your mechanics. Sometimes you can use the same exercise, but you can't use the same foot position. Or with legs, the same, you may have to shift your foot position or toe position so that it's out further. Maybe you have a wider stance, maybe you have a more narrow stance. Usually it's the former and not the latter, but those variations matter. And once you find something, and this is what I did with the belt squat, once you find something that you go, oh man, this might be gold, when you have rehabbed the injury, hang on to that. It's a very, very low risk exercise, which means you can arguably push those sets and your intensity further with a belt squat than you can with a barbell squat anyway. Now, I will say this, there is one caveat. You better make damn sure, you know where I'm going.
Yes.
That the safety catch on the belt squat is set correctly, because if you go to failure and that safety catch is not high enough, good luck getting out of that failure set, because you're strapped in. Like there's nowhere to go. Like, what are you going to do? You try to sit down. You can't sit down with all that weight. It's a very, very, when I say you can't injure yourself very easily and it's low risk, that part is the exception. So make sure that is set before you start your warm-ups if you're not familiar with the exercise.
So what's funny is, let's just throw this on the screen now. I'll have Chris do that. Is I was messing around with a somersault on it and it was money. I sent it to you in our chat. The somersault squat on the belt squat was awesome. God, that's going to be heavily in my involvement. But the first set, when I hit failure, I was able to kind of hang out, wait a little bit, then kind of do pull myself up and stand up. But the second one, I had nothing in me.
Yep.
But I was smart enough to make sure if I got to one knee, I could still unhook myself. So if it doesn't have safety catches, you don't have somebody there helping you. Like on Widowmaker Day, yes, you had your training partner there, right, to bail you out. Mm. But make sure especially if you train solo like Skip does, right? Yeah, have the safeties, or make sure you can unhook yourself if you hit failure. Because yes, there is an element of this is safer than a back squat. I'm going to go for this rep that I don't know I could get.
Right.
So make sure you do that. And then also, yeah, the somersault, man, that is my favorite way to load my quads right now, just because my bad knee's so pissed off. So I've been doing a lot of somersaults, and that is now my new favorite variation. It's so easy to load. It is brutal. That is my leg extension, essentially. But yeah, just make sure you're being smart and careful with the safeties, a training partner, or that. Yeah, because then otherwise, what are you going to do? Try and if you're in a pulley, pull up on the low to unhook. You ain't going to be able to do that.
Not gonna happen.
That could be a disaster.
Yep.
The only other thing where I see an element that you got to be careful is your low back control, because it can. So if this is my belly button, and I wish I had my spine, I apologize. Because it's pulling you, it could pull you into that anterior pelvic tilt, which could put your back in a position that could cause some issues.
Yeah.
So you've got to really control your pelvis and not let it dump you into that crazy anterior pelvic tilt, which won't feel good. It'll decrease force output. Now that's not the biggest deal, because it's primarily decreasing force output in the hamstrings. Again, you cannot prioritize hamstrings in a squat-like pattern. You cannot prioritize hamstrings in a squat-like pattern. It is a stabilizer. The top lengthens, the bottom shortens, and vice versa. Okay. So the one study on the top of my head, we had 1% hamstring growth. So it is not a hamstring
roughly
movement.
A 15% involvement. It's just not.
Yeah. It's
much.
A stabilizer.
And
correct.
I wonder too, and this is why it's disappointing that there aren't a lot of studies. And I mean, I don't need 10 of them, but it would be interesting to see if there was a change of any significance with the hamstring involvement as a stabilizer. But I'm going to guess that it's far less.
Yeah. Because Sci-Hub got shut down, so listeners, if you found a new way to access full studies for free, I found one of these on Google Scholar. The other one, it was not. I got denied for, they said my job doesn't qualify as a researcher. So one of the studies, I only got the abstract. And the one that I fully read did not measure hamstrings, which was interesting, which was the isometric study. The first one, I don't remember if they did hamstring. It's not ringing a bell. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then also, don't cheat yourself and think you're stronger than you are and turning it into a half row, half squat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I see that all the time.
Yep. Yeah. I consider those handles, at least in my brain, it's pretty much just for balance.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. But at the same time, don't think that it's still easy to pull yourself out once you hit failure.
Correct.
I was at about 4 weeks out, and which is probably the most opportune time for this to happen. You're just going along. You're like, oh, this weight isn't all that heavy. You're halfway up. You're like, what happened? Like someone just turned off the energy switch. Like, what the hell's going on? And I remember finishing the set because I was halfway and it just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I held it. And in my brain, I don't know how your guys' brains process things, but I was in slow motion. It felt like I was stopped there for about 23 minutes when in reality, it was maybe 2 seconds, but I was stuck there and I held it for just a second thinking, okay, it's just gonna break, and it wouldn't move. And it's about 2 inches from breaking the sticking point and then being able to finish the rep. And I gave a little bit of an added oomph. Now, I want to touch on the added oomph real quick. Added oomphs have caused me lower back injuries time and time again. I remember after I racked it, I thought, you were so close to a lower back disc injury right there, closer. And I went through this entire prep with 0 injuries. I did have that TFL issue the last week or two from the repetitive treadmill because I had to get so many steps that my body is not used to per week. And I had to switch to the elliptical, and it fixed it. But that TFL was firing up to the point where my knee was starting to hurt. And there was at least one leg session that I was not convinced when I started in on that leg session that I would be able to do it at 2 weeks out. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This entire prep, I've had no problems in it. 2 weeks out, I'm not gonna be able to train legs. And then I was able to train them. But the point is there is that point where you can get your ass caught, and pulling out with your hands you might think is easier than it is, but if your legs are done pulling out, it's gonna, there are many jokes right there, but I'm far too mature to go down that
wow,
path.
New Skip. Look at this.
I've turned a new leaf. Of course, just mentioning it, I think, shows where my maturity level is. But nonetheless, be careful, because you will think, oh, I can pull myself out. You can a little bit. But if you've hit failure, man, you're going to have a hell of a time getting out. And then you're going to realize, oh, shit, I might be stuck here. How am I going to get out of this?
Now, do you use the belt squat machine for any other movements?
You know, I don't. Okay. And I get irritated when people do rows on it and then leave the goddamn bar attachment on it, because then I have to dig it out from between the platforms if it's a lever machine, because it's usually underneath the platforms. It's got a different connector hook on it, and it's just kind of a pain in the ass. But the only reason I think I don't use it is because I have a good variety of back equipment anyway in my gym, even though the one is very old school, kind of garage style. I haven't. Now, I will tell you this. If the platform were larger, then I might do some low rows on it, RDLs, something like that. But with the platform, I don't want to say the platform is too small. The platform is large enough for anything you're going to do with squatting on it. But I would want that platform to be extended back further away from the pulley, and this one isn't. So it almost pushes me into a position for the row that I don't like, that I would want to set back further. I want to do a row like that where I am actually pulling, where the pulley is away from me. And it doesn't allow me to do that unless I'm just standing on the ground. And then the pulley is so much higher. It's just not a great feel.
Yeah. My favorite RDL variation right now is a belt squat RDL. And it's super helpful. So I think we should do a little bit of a tangent, because some people can have perfect RDL form from the outside looking in and still have low back pain, because there is going to be some natural shearing force on the low back. Well, if you use a belt squat and you could stand a little bit behind it, like Skip was talking about, right? So it's angled, the pulley's in front of you. That's going to take some of that direct line of pull down, especially on the low back, that lumbosacral junction, and reduce shearing force. So if you're somebody who, you warm up your hips like we've talked about, you have good core control, you know how to brace, you do everything right. On the outside looking in, it looks like it should be perfect. You're not looking up and extending your neck in the bottom. Your chin is neutral. Your vision's a pendulum. You're doing everything right and you still have low back pain. Try a belt squat and do the RDL there. Put the damn bar back, please. Right. Depending on the setup, you might need to get it unracked. Somebody might have to physically unrack it for you. So every machine's different. But I really, really, really like a belt squat RDL. It feels great. It takes a lot of shearing force. It's different variation. It's super fun. Blah, blah, blah.
Agreed.
Yep.
I don't know why I don't do it. Be honest, I head over to the dumbbell section and grab the dumbbell.
Yeah.
It's probably, honestly, just more familiarity than it is anything else. It's like, I could see myself doing this and doing it wrong and messing up something. But again, if that platform were larger, I think I would have been all over it. And here's the thing. I haven't tried it. I've only looked at it and went, yeah, it's not in the position. Like I'm standing there evaluating it going, that's just not going to fit. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Some of the platforms, I'm like, why is it?
Yeah. I think probably just because they made it, unfortunately,
and the
specific.
Yes,
true.
For
footprint
squats.
is a big deal. That's true.
Yep.
But I'm thinking, okay, they didn't make it with the idea of, other, people might be doing other things with the hammer strength one is there's plenty of room because
that's what I use
much
my
longer.
RDLs on.
Yeah.
Yep. And then like I'll see people do like hip thrusts with it. I know the Bolt one had a little, you couldn't take it off. It was really dumb, a little seat. So I'm like, I'm hitting it every time. Or if I take the seat off, I got this damn pole sticking up. Well, if I hit failure, I'm landing on that in an area I don't want to be landing in a pole.
Yeah. Well, let's touch on the hip, the glute, or what'd you call it again? Hip thrust.
Yeah.
Because I have found that with the lever, if you're all the way out to the furthest hole on the lever and like you are
away from the machine.
Yeah. Basically like
closest to you, farthest away from the weight.
There you go. There you go.
Yep.
And then you position yourself very close to the handles as you squat. And my wife picked up on this, which is odd because sometimes I'll be like, oh, like, what are you doing? Like you're doing overhead tricep extensions. We're training shoulders. Yet she has trained for, I don't even know, 18 years or 20 years. But she came up with this. She would use, and I asked her why she was doing it. She had moved closer so that the pulley was arguably like, if this is her butt, the pulley is away from her. The machine is up here. It's literally back here. So in this area, so that when she squats, she can then at the very top hip thrust in, which is giving that pull or that resistance. And she said, she goes, I finish with a couple sets that I focus more on my glutes and less on my quads. That's why I lighten it up a little bit, but I want that hip thrust or that glute, that feeling in my glutes for the last couple sets.
Yeah. Cause remember we talked about if it's pulled back by definition, I have to extend my hips farther forward to fight that line of pull.
Yep.
Yep. So again, you could play around with it, right? Especially if you're limited with equipment or you're injured. I know there was I think they went out of business. There was the home gym one that was straight up and down and you use weight plates. Oh, what was it called? They made a huge run. I think they went out of business, but you could add resistance band and weight plates to do it from home. And it was just straight up and down only. There was no angling. I'm drawing a blank. Somebody will know. But that was for like a home gym. That was reasonable, right? Because it was reasonable footprint. And then they had the pads for, hip thrust rows. They even had a pad for your head so you could anchor your head and do a bent over row with it. So like it was a cool Squat HD, Squat Max. Yeah, Squat Max. Okay, so they're still in business. Squat Max MD. So that's I've never used one, but that is a home gym one, relatively small footprint. They had a bunch of attachments for it. They got like Peter Attia to vouch for it, Dr. Stu McGill to vouch for it. What's the power lifter, the Vanilla Gorilla, the strong dude? Oh my God. I know his nickname on Instagram. I'm drawing a blank. One of the strongest human beings to ever lift.
Well, if McGill backed it.
Yeah. So Squat Max MD, I get no money referring. I've never tried one, but I saw it and I was like, interesting. And there's a lot of stuff. So for home gym people, be like, well, I can't fit a belt squat. That is an option for you. So guys, if you want to send me a check in the mail or a free machine, I would appreciate it. I will give you my address. Yep.
Where the shipping costs more than the actual equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. So I really don't got more to add. Yeah. So
I know. I think we've covered everything. I mean, they're really just there's a lot to unravel at the same time. I mean, I think we covered everything. So I don't want to forget to smash or pass. So take it.
I will smash. So long as you're paying attention to your pelvis, you're setting everything up so you don't get pinned. And just remember, you don't only have to squat. And I would say, hey, everybody, just humor me. If you have a belt squat, try a somersault squat. It's awesome. It loads the quads like a leg extension. It's brutal.
And just real quick before I smash or pass, I would guess that the measurement that they had at the ankle for the belt squat would be similar, with the increased involvement of the gastroc and the soleus, would be similar to pendulum. In the sense that there would be more involvement there at the ankle versus say like a hack squat or something. Obviously it comes down to foot position, too, whether your feet are low or high, but if they're positioned where they're supposed to, I could certainly see that. I wanted to make that point earlier. But I really think that we covered everything well. I'm gonna smash the hell out of it, because I'm not, it is in my programming, it is arguably to me the most important exercise that I'm doing for my quads. Typically I have an opener, and most people be like, oh, I bet he does extensions because it's isolation, but I don't for quads. I actually open with the belt squat. Would I open with the barbell squat? I wouldn't, but I do with the belt squat. Now, keep in mind too, the viewers, that this is important. I have a very, very routine, not only stretching protocol, but then I have my backwards walking on the treadmill because of the knee. It's something that I developed, a little bit of a warm-up program that I developed when I had the knee issues, when I was rehabbing them. And I will not train legs without doing and having the time to do my stretching routine, to open up my hips. It's not really to increase range of motion, like to aggressively stretch. It's just to make sure that everything is open and it's not tight. Then I go into the backward walking for 5 minutes, where I alternate between the backward walking on an incline, and then I turn around, I do a little bit of half lunges and some movements there. And I can actually video this if people are interested. I've done it before. Information is certainly out there, but I could add that as well so people know what I'm doing. And then I always finish up with 2.5 to 3 minutes on either a recumbent bike or a stationary bike, much like a Peloton, I guess, to actually get a pump in my quads, get the temperature up. And here's something else too. I refuse to train legs. This is where we have these mental blocks sometimes. I refuse to train legs without compression tights. One time in the last 3 years, I tried to train legs. It was as I was getting deeper into the prep, I was starting to get, lean. I wanted to see the vascularity in my legs. And it was probably a mental block, but my knee started to bother me. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. There's no way that this is related to not wearing compression tights, because I had shorts on. So I had to extend the warm up, be super careful, do probably another 5 sets of light leg presses and before I could actually get into everything. But I ended up putting my sweats back on, and for some reason that blew the mental block. But after that stationary bike to get the pump and everything else, then I move into a couple sets of light leg extensions, but they're not opener sets. And I go directly into my belt squatting, and it's worked phenomenally. It's the core of my quad training. So again, if in doubt, you might look and you go, oh, Skip, you're still battling to get your leg size back. Look at other people who focus on this exercise primarily, like Austin Stout. I just saw his pictures just a couple days ago, progress. And I mean, the guy's legs are insane. They're just growing. They're just growing like crazy. And it's not necessarily because he's gifted genetically. Yeah, obviously there's a genetic component, don't get me wrong. But he still busts his ass, and all of his training stuff is there. His belt squat, or that belt squat, is an integral part of his quad training. He does a lot of elevated heel stuff as well. And he does some of that bent over too, to where it is almost pendulum related, to where it's that pushing out and away. And with the elevated heels, of course, there's going to be a lot more quad development there too. At the same time, he's damn sure not lacking in the glute and hamstring department either. So anybody who'd say, well, I don't know, you may end up, with a weak posterior chain because, Skip, you said yourself that there is not that posterior chain involvement like there is with barbell squats. There's also not these gigantic glutes and hips like we're seeing, and adductors, let's not forget that too.
Yeah.
A lot of adductor involvement from the barbell squats. And I'm not, shitting on barbell squats. I'm saying there comes a point where it can really mess with the shape of the quad. I don't want to say quads, but the legs, from the giant glutes and hips to the adductors. And then you just look, if you could take away, just peel away like an orange, the glutes and the adductors, you go, those quads are good, but they're really no better than anybody else's quads. That says something. Next time you see really good legs, try to mentally peel away the adductors and the glutes and the hips. And those quads really aren't all that much better than anybody else's. So I'm getting long-winded. Point is, I'm going to smash the hell out of this exercise. I'm going to keep it in my toolbox, and I'm going to continue to use it for my quad training, literally until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. I like everything you said. I'd stole riding the exercise bike from you, from when you mentioned it on BSG years ago. So I do that now. I'll even put my BFR cuffs on and then ride the bike to make it even more toasty. And then I'm big on, say for some reason you split up quad and hamstring training, I still will always program in programs for people a couple sets of light leg curls to get blood in the hamstrings, because that'll increase leverages in the bottom, kind of getting you out of the hole, and then just warming up the knee joint, just another way versus going straight to extensions. When you're young and injury free, your knees are Teflon, but as you get some mileage, you won't. And then compression. Joints love compression. That's the whole premise behind, voodoo floss. That's the whole premise behind wraps in general. It warms it up a little. That's why I'm wearing this for my complex regional pain syndrome, right? It's not a great look, but it shuts off pain. That's why Morgan Freeman now wears a glove. He has the same injury. Compression helps. Off the top of my head, so it's not like I reread the study, you don't even have to wear compression pants during the workout to reduce some of the delayed onset muscle soreness. You could put compression pants on after, and it'll reduce DOMs a little bit. So that was interesting. That's from the top of my head. I use knee wraps. I cover everything up because I need the heat, right?
That's how I feel about it too.
But like even the compression, that little bit will make the knee feel better. So when people are coming back from an injury for rehab, I'm like, hey, just get a basic neoprene knee sleeve. I don't like, if you're not wearing leggings, right? I don't wear leggings, to each their own. I don't like the ones that have a hole for the kneecap because it's constantly moving. But good old fashioned neoprene, man, it does wonders for little angry joints or coming back from stuff. It'll even control, say you've got an irritated meniscus. Wearing compression pants, this is anecdote, I don't have a study. Wearing compression pants, sleeves, wraps, whatever, that'll even reduce some of the swelling that would occur from an irritated meniscus doing leg training.
Now, I will say, just as a little side note, I can't use knee sleeves anymore. And I think it's been since the injury, because my injury was articular cartilage related, so osteoarthritis.
Yeah, it could be too much.
It is. What it is they're the material that gathers behind the knee when I'm in that whole position, if you will, HOLE, not WHOLE. Yeah. But when I'm in the hole, that material that gathers behind the knee, for lack of a better way to explain it, leverages. It's almost like if you get what I'm saying? It's almost like if you put a twig back there, you're putting more pressure than on the area.
It's going to gap it.
Exactly. Exactly. Which is disappointing, because I feel the same way you do about neoprene. Hell, even just regular sleeves that aren't ridiculously tight. They need, as long as they're stretchy, they have some elasticity to them. Great. Neoprene is great. But with neoprene, they're even arguably thicker than most of I use elbow sleeves, as silly as that sounds, because I like how tight they are. They're essentially the same thing.
Small.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just smaller and they're tighter. Yeah. And so then I thought, it's because they're tight. So I got some that fit that were more loose. It's the same thing. That material back there, it just doesn't bode well for me.
That makes sense.
At all. Prehab Rehab Rodeo Roundup. Woo-hoo-hoo!
We did rice bucket with all the muscles of your hands. So same concept. Now we're going to the feet. So people don't give muscles of the feet enough credit. It's really, really important. And people go, why the bleep are we talking about this with bodybuilding? Well, having you do this exercise, yes, we had this other issue when you're doing your cardio, which we will cover in a future segment, but there's 11 small muscles that reside within your feet, and they get dampened or dimmer switched down from a couple things. One, any ankle trauma. So if you've ever rolled an ankle, it could dimmer switch those muscles down. That's why ankle sprains have up to a 45% re-injury reoccurrence rate. It's one of the highest rates of any injuries because people do not turn those back on. Also, I make terrible joke in the office. We wear foot prisons our whole lives, right? So it's like wearing gloves on your hands your whole lives. And then after 35 years, taking them off and be like, I can't play the piano. Well, no shit, right? So foot prisons, ankle trauma, blah, blah, blah. So what do these muscles do? And this is research. So they dampen vibration, which is really important for doing cardio, right? Your brain uses those muscles for something called proprioception, which is knowing where my arm is in space without looking. So if there is a delay, and I will show how you could assess yourself based on a patient that we put up like a week or two ago. If you have a delay, well, a little bump turns into a big, right? So people are not broken, people are not fragile. But anytime anybody comes in with a lower body complaint, the first thing I do is watch them walk, and I could tell them, you rolled your right ankle. I did that 20 years ago. It does change foot biomechanics, right? So how the foot moves, we've talked about, impacts hip mobility, and then those muscles will be dimmer switched down. So they dampen vibration. They're used for proprioception. For field athletes, they're directly tied to lateral agility. A recent study said it's directly tied to sprint speed. Bunion formation, it will not reverse bunions, but it'll slow down the progression. And I could have patients with their toes are like totally overlapped. They look gnarly. And if they're doing this exercise and getting the muscles firing, it takes away their pain a ton. And then, you know, for people later on in life, it's directly tied to senior citizen fall risk. So when I ended my training career, I did a lot of work in retirement homes. Most of them had Parkinson's or elderly folks. We work on foot strength. Their fall rates went down by almost 40%.
Oh, nice.
From that. Yep. So it's really important. So there is a test called Veile's test. VELEE is the orthopedic test. I jokingly call it the Michael Jackson test. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this video. That way you could see it in real time. We might have Chris just overlay it so it's a little bit more professional. But I will show, you're looking for, when you do this test, you're looking for your toes to take this shape called the toe wink sign. So we're not bending it. The first knuckle is flexing, the second knuckle is extending. And you will see it on this patient side to side. That tells me those foot intrinsics are firing, right? And whether they fire at all or if there's a delay. Oh, and it's also, these are also directly tied to plantar fasciitis. So this is one of the big rehab things. So if you have a history of that, it's because you probably never worked on these. Okay, so here we go. So I'm talking about, he walked, I said, hey, you sprained your left ankle. He's twice. Yep. So now we're going to do the Michael Jackson test, which is the Veile's test. So he's going to keep his heels on the ground, knees locked. He's going to lean forward and then grip down with his toes to pull back.
Oh, you can see he looks like a smooth criminal.
Yep. So see how that toe's taking that shape, right? That's the toe wink sign. But look on the side that he rolled. See how only that one is doing it? Yeah. So his foot is not firing on the left side. So we got to rehab that. So I'm going to quit sharing my screen for a second and then we'll go right back to it. So everything I just quoted is from a guy named Dr. Thomas Michaud. When I want to feel like a complete and absolute moron, which isn't very hard, but when I do, I listen to this man talk and I go, I know nothing. He created a device called the Toe Pro. So TOEPRO. His company's Human Locomotion. I need to get a promo code, so I'm going to actually reach out. If I could get that in time, I will have that put in because I believe in this. We sell these in offices. So there's a specific protocol that I will share what I have patients do, not his, because his full protocol is 20 minutes at a time, 5 days a week. Nobody's doing that. What I tell people, though, is you don't have to have this specific device to do this. You just need something squishy. So try the free option first. Then if you're frustrated, yes, you could spend money on this. I will try to get a promo code because I really believe in this. But you could use a rolled up yoga mat, a pillow, a squishy Eric's pad, just something squishy to dig into. Okay. So how you're going to strengthen those muscles is there is a warm up exercise and an actual exercise. And I believe this individual showed both. How do I get rid of Siri? Oops. All right, there we go. So that's the toe pro. So the first exercise, you're going to go to the edge of whatever you're using, and you're going to grip down, and you're going to try and take that toe wink sign. Okay. So she's elevating her heels a little bit, but you would just grip down and try and practice that. You could do isometric holds. She's doing his protocol where there's doing holds. I would say just keep your heel down, grip the toes. You're good. Then you would go higher up on whatever device you're using. On the toe pro, you go to that crescent moon. You grip down. There's the first part. So you're going to go to the edge of whatever you're using, and you're just going to, you could keep the heel down. She went to his advanced thing where you're doing an isometric. Most people can't do that. You're going to go to the edge and you're going to grip down. You're going to try and get that toes to take those toe wink sign. So I tell patients in the beginning, you're going to do 2 to 3 sets of 10 reps. As the toes start firing quicker, you could get rid of the warm-ups. But
so
in the beginning,
only the toes are on the toe pro, not
Yep.
the ball of the foot, like you're doing a calf raise.
Correct. Yep. And it would be at the edge of the pillow, the rolled up yoga mat, whatever. And you're going to try and grip the toes down to get that shape. He will have, Dr. Thomas Michaud has people do ISO. Like I said, it turns into 20 minutes. Nobody's doing that. But I say 2 or 3 sets of 10 starting out, then maybe, go from 3 to 2, 2 to 1. And then eventually you might not even have to warm up. Then you go higher up. So you would go to the crescent moon on the toe pro, or move higher up on your squishy device. You're going to grip down, and then while continuing to grip down, you're going to calf raise up, which is a lot of work. Like, it is a lot, especially if those foot muscles haven't fired in a while. Like, you'd almost feel like the bottom of your foot's cramping, but it's pretty remarkable. I start everybody with this straight leg position, right? And I typically recommend 3 sets of 15. So that's plenty. You start with a straight leg, get the toes firing, get them stronger. Then when it's time to make it harder, you start that whole progression over again, but now your knee is bent, which is 10 times harder because that's going to change gastroc versus soleus and getting it to integrate with those 11 small muscles. So again, you're trying to get your toes to take this shape called the toe wink sign, like we showed in the guy's video. And then you could grip down, relax. You could also just be gripping in your shoes throughout the day. Fire, 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 right? When I work events, like when I do the CrossFit Open, without fail, every year, at least one person has a flare-up of plantar fasciitis going, but they're not going to sit out. So I will do an exercise where I manually essentially do like tug of war with their toes, like when resisting, blah, blah, blah. And they get up and they're like, oh my God, my pain's cut in half, and they could get through the WOD to submit their time. So those muscles are really, really important for bodybuilding, for cardio. I bet you that the side that you're having issues, yes, we knew it was from your TFL stemming from your foot, impacting the knee like we talked about. But I would go out on a limb and say, I bet you that side foot, the muscles don't recruit as well. So that'll dampen vibration for cardio, decrease ankle sprain risk. And then if you're a multi-sport athlete or you do stuff other than bodybuilding, it's directly tied to lateral agility. So all my mixed martial artists, my grapplers, my jujitsu, obviously the rugby team I treat, all of that, we implement that without fail. Dude, I'm quicker. I'm faster.
And I think it should be noted too. I tell my clients this a lot. I focus primarily on the older demographic because they tend to gravitate to me because I have that relatable injury issue and a lot of time under my belt training, that sort of thing, much like they do. I tell them all the time, the amount of lateral movement that we make is almost non-existent the older we get. When we're in the gym, everything is linear. We're not moving laterally. That's why there are so many issues with the older demographic when they go, oh, yeah, like when a client tells me he's going to be in a softball league, I'm like, oh shit. Or I'm going to do play a pickup basketball game this weekend. I'm like, yeah, you're going to come back and not be able to train. Not because you're fatigued, but because you're going to mess something up in your hip, your ankle, something, because you're not used to this lateral movement. Your body is going to be like, what? And it's kind of funny because I've caught myself doing this. I'm older. I feel like my last fight was, with someone, fist fight was 3 months ago. But in reality, it's been a long time, much like pickup games. I'm moving laterally. And I want to add this too. After my knee injury, I had the glute tear on the left side, which essentially caused the right knee issue because I had to favor that side for almost 6 months, just for mundane things, getting in and out of a car, sitting down on a toilet, sitting down on the couch, climbing stairs, things like that. And not just climbing them, but going down them. So what I did find was I went to stand, my guy, longtime friend, Dr. Petros Fragiskakis, doctor of physical therapy. I know he's not a real doctor. Before someone busts me in the YouTube, he's not a real doctor. I don't know why you're calling yourself a doctor. Anyway, he'd have me standing on one. That's exactly what those sound like too, just for the record, when I read their comments. But when he had me stand on one foot, at first I stood on my left. I'm like, oh yeah, it's no problem. You just, he's like, hold your leg up, just stand there for a minute. Then when I went to stand on my right foot, it was all I could do to keep my balance. That strength through the lateral and medial part between my knee and my ankle was garbage. It was crap. So I would imagine then, based on what you're saying, I did have those muscles in the feet. Not only did I have the weakness between the ankle and the knee, lateral and medial, but I also, I'm sure, had the weakness in the muscles of the actual feet that you're talking about. And I bet a lot of them weren't firing.
Yep. And guess what? The single leg balance test is independently associated with all-cause mortality in middle-aged and older adults. If you cannot stand on a single leg for at least 10 seconds, all-cause mortality goes up pretty darn high. Wow. And that's actual legitimate, just under 2,000 people, very well done, lots of research, blah, blah, blah.
I'm dodging a lot of bullets over here, Dr. Marv.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yep. Correct. So, like,
you know what helps,
do stuff
for what
now.
it's worth? Lunges. I want to make sure I get that in there because the lunges, I mean, the first time I would do it, I'd go to plant my foot as I put that leg out there and it just, all over the place. And I'm like, I could stay in a Smith machine and hang on, but that's defeating the purpose. Correct. I need to get this balance. So since then, I have kept lunges in, and arguably, I've had much better progress through development, through
I will use lunges to work on foot strength and control too. Yeah, if somebody's unbalanced, I go, oh, there's something going on at the foot.
And which, quite frankly, I think should be a posit and a topic. Lunges or walking lunges, and not even just Bulgarian split squats, because I do think with the lunge, there's arguably more balance involved than there is with a Bulgarian split squat. So to the viewers, look for that topic coming up in the next few weeks because, we've done 25 shows now. I don't want to say we're running out of topics, but we don't have the list that we had 25 episodes ago.
And speaking of which, we need listener questions.
Yes.
So comment. Plus, you're going to be entered to drawings. We're going to be doing our drawing for July here very shortly in a future episode. So we'll announce that soon. So we need questions. But if you have a hard time balancing, and it's usually, I can't balance when my left foot's behind me. I bet you, not the only reason, but I bet you that left foot, those foot intrinsics are not firing very well. So there is today's, I will let you say it because you could say it way better than me.
What am I missing?
Rehab, prehab, rodeo.
Oh, yes.
I'm not going to attempt. I am not even going to attempt.
Rehab, prehab, rodeo roundup. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Yep.
I'll get busted for that in the comment section too. Yep. It's predictable.
Cool. So we got one question to finish up the show. Cool. Just a fun one. It'll be quick. So this is from @peacock5.7.7. Addendum to this episode, and I believe it was deloads, would be great to answer the question, how do you flip the switch to reference grinding out those last few reps, max effort, or, ER or PR time? Like, how do you flip the switch to get through those final grueling reps when everything's telling you to quit, but you still want to hit it?
What's the ER reference?
That's what I'm, that's what I'm a little confused on.
Yeah. And I'm sure that if he would say what it is, I'd be like, oh,
yeah, correct.
But I didn't get that. You know what? That's a tough one because it's hard to explain because the longer you train, the more you're programmed psychologically to go there.
Yeah.
It's almost, you spend enough time training, it's the expectation. I think I have a harder, it's harder for me to pull back away from that than it is to actually find it and go there. And I have found myself battling with that over the last 2 weeks since getting back in the gym after the show. I want to go there, but thankfully my body is saying, oh no, the muscle contractions and the pumps are so massive right now. There's no real reason to go there. So it's making it easier to hold back. But I know in a couple weeks, when that initial kind of novelty phase wears off, where the pump isn't coming as easy as it is now, and the contractile force starts to get to more of a normal position or where it normally would be, then I will start to want to push. But it's there. I want to push now, but I know that that's not a good idea. So it's a tough one to answer. It is clearly psychological. And I just think that the more time that you have invested, you know whether you can go there with the mechanics required and the intensity required and the control required versus just, coming in and you've been training for 3 months and you're just going to go ape shit on bench press. But then when it comes to legs, you're going to stop at 10 when you could have gotten 22.
Yes.
There's this big,
which the research says is real. The research says people undershoot on a leg press 10 reps.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. You can almost tell who has trained a long time versus someone who is relatively new to training, because when they're relatively new, they'll train chest, or especially put them on the bench press. They're going to provide 10 times the effort and either train to failure or past failure on that exercise and that muscle group. But everything else, maybe biceps. But after that, the leg training is weak. The back training is weak. The shoulder training is weak. It's just, you can see it. It's such a stark contrast. So I will tell clients all the time, as long as you're training legs as hard as you would train chest, then you're doing okay.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people don't. And just because it's a display and you seem like you're putting out the effort, you actually have to, this is one of those I call it a ceiling fan moment. And I've written articles about this. You can bullshit people all day long. You can feign intensity, you can feign money and success and everything else. But when you're lying in bed at the end of the night and it's just you and the ceiling fan, those are some of the most honest conversations you're going to have, because you know whether you're bullshitting, you know whether you're real, you know whether you're successful or not, or happy for that matter. So does the ceiling fan. But everybody else can bullshit. So you know whether you're training hard, you know whether you're there or whether you're training hard enough. But at the end of the day, are you progressing? Because if you are progressing and there's a consistent progression in the gym within bodybuilding rep ranges and your strength is going up, that's a micro gauge. You are growing. You cannot improve or progress within bodybuilding ranges on strength and not be adding muscle tissue. You can't. It's just, now powerlifting, rep ranges, you could argue that, okay, maybe, but within bodybuilding rep ranges, if you're progressing there with strength, you are progressing as far as adding muscle tissue. It's just that black and white. And there aren't a lot of black and white things with what we do, but that is one of them that you can count on. On the flip side of that, it doesn't mean that just because you're losing a little bit of strength that you're losing muscle tissue. There's too many variables there. You could be fatigued. You could be later in the week when you are in a deficit. It could be a lot of cardio. It could be shitty sleep. It could be stressed. But if you're progressing, you're growing.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a skill. Like my training intensity, when I thought I was intense 10 years ago, I would laugh at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Music, I've talked about this before. Music is a huge part of my workout. Huge. Like I have different songs for different movements. I have different songs while I prep for different movements. Like it's becoming a problem. Like where I'm like, God, I have my metronome. You hate that. I love it.
It's just also, not for me. I don't hate it.
And then I think really positive thoughts. I would be put in a mental institution if people knew what I would say to myself leading up to a big set, especially during my Widowmaker days. I can't Widowmaker anymore. I don't think I'll ever be able to. I did it for 3.5 years. Amazing. 275 Smith squats for 54 reps. Like, I did shit like that. I'm never doing that again. I tried like a year ago. Nope. I was like, I don't got it anymore. But music's big for me. Focusing on stuff. It's my favorite form of meditation because you have to be mindful. You're not thinking about anything else. But it also takes a lot of maturity because if are you a power lifter? Are you a bodybuilder?
Right.
You still want the target muscle to do the work. So now because with how injured I am, it is what it is. I am hyper focused on recruitment, right? Can I get back to the numbers I had before when I wasn't, mimicking a intense leg extension action in the bottom of a hack, right? Because it changes it. It really does. So it just takes time. I agree. There's a difference between somebody who's been training for 3 years and 30 years. So it just is. And that's not bad. I'm not like calling people out. Like, you should look at what you thought was intense 3 years ago and like laugh.
Yeah.
Like, that's normal. So do that. But yeah, for me, it's music and really positive thoughts.
And that's another contrast between how we train. There are people who train on emotion. They'll think of things. I used to have a friend in high school who would think of like traumatic things that really would anger him. And I'm not that way. So we have that kind. There's nothing wrong with it.
Nope.
I'm pointing out the contrast because some people can thrive off of digging into that emotion, while other people, I always refer to it in my brain as controlled chaos. So there's no emotion involved.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just go ape shit crazy, like, oh man, and just, I got to move the weight from point A to point B. So it's chaos, but it's controlled. So that's just always been that label that I put on it to try to explain it. Can I? Really can't. It's like trying to explain the green room. You can't really explain it until you know what it is.
I'll be transparent. I've cried during hard sets before because I get so worked up. But
see, I usually cry during sex. It's a big turnoff to my wife.
You have the tissues next so she could wipe it off.
Yeah, it's just you curl up in the corner of the closet. It's very in the fetal position. It's just bad.
But you also need to know, can you harness it or not? Because you can get too worked up to where, powerlifting is a great example. Like Chuck Vogelpohl, man, that dude, he would bomb, and then you'd hit an all-time world record hold. He'd be like, how can you do that? Because he would get so worked up, he would lose execution, he would lose the groove. So like, you've got to figure out your balancing. What works for me ain't going to work for Skip and vice versa. So find what works for you, experiment with stuff. But just, to each their own, but it is a skill. So just be patient. If you've only been training 3 years, guess what? Year 6, you're going to be a monster. Year 10, you should be more of a monster, right? So like, it is a skill, is a progression. So that's what we got.
On that note, I think I'm going to take us out. We got to get to getting. This is Skip and Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. If you didn't like the show, pretend you did and like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. Remember, if your question or topic is chosen and used on the show, you'll be entered into a monthly drawing, and we will randomly choose one winner at the end of each month who will receive $150 shopping spree from EliteFTS.com, a 5-pound bag of Team Skip protein from TrueNutrition.com, and Dr. Marv's online bodybuilding anatomy course. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. Dr. Marv, how can someone reach out to you if they have questions or if they want to work with you?
Easiest way is Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. My office is Coastal Performance Chiropractic in the Houston Bay Area. My other website is theeducatedmeathead.com.
If you have too much skin, meaning you say you're 15%, but your fat ass is well over 20%, go to teamskip.com and you'll find all of my contact information, including Team Skip merch. You can also follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle. I remove skin, not loose skin, but body fat. Keep in mind that this is a team of 3, not 2. Chris is the enigma behind the scenes, and he's responsible for the visuals and graphics. And he also plays a huge role in the creative process. This project would not work without him. So from all 3 of us, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.